So I recently got my hands on a Nintendo Switch 2, and obviously the big title to play on the system at launch was the legendary, the one, the only, most highly anticipated, Antonblast! What, you thought I was going to start with Mario Kart? No, Antonblast is the plum line of the channel! So I got to play Antonblast on my Nintendo Switch 2, and needless to say, it actually runs a bit better than it did on the original hardware it was released on. Yeah, crazy! Backwards compatibility actually done right by Nintendo. Way to go! You improved the performance of an old game! So if you look at Antonblast on the Nintendo Switch, the system had a lot of performance issues, especially at launch. However, in a patch that came out shortly after launch, the performance was improved a bit, but it's still not perfect on the original hardware. The game constantly dips in frame rates depending on the load on there, and it never quite hits 60 FPS in any situation, mostly hanging around the 50 FPS mark. However, booting the game up on Nintendo Switch 2, and you notice, hey, the game's running well! Every moment that you could think of within Antonblast that would tank the frame rate on the Switch is pretty much all fixed up and patched up. Very little frame rate drops show up anymore, and the game actually runs buttery smooth, almost like you're playing it on a Steam Deck, which is how I played through the PC version for the first time. While this isn't going to be like a comprehensive video showing every single little minutia and detail on the Switch version compared to the Switch 2 version, I can definitely tell you that the game overall just runs a lot better. I recorded a couple levels of gameplay, and every single moment I've found, the game just ran absolutely buttery smooth. Maybe get like one little pocket of frame rate drops, but on the whole, the game runs really well now. Moments like in the big bath on the original hardware that would tank the frame rate when you're going through it really quickly, hold up absolutely beautifully on the Switch 2. It was kind of a joke back in the day that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's patch to fix the game would be the release of a new piece of Nintendo hardware, and when it actually ended up being the case, sadly, and it ends up being kind of the case here with Antonblast. The game's still getting updates and stuff like that with new content, but so far the Switch version's been left hung to dry out since the end of December. So having a Nintendo Switch 2 to brute force the game to run at 60 FPS is kind of nice for people that only play on the Nintendo consoles. Now I'm not going to lie, having Antonblast running at 60 FPS on the Nintendo console is not the reason to buy the Switch 2. However, it is a nice benefit for those that have Antonblast and are planning on upgrading to the Switch 2. The only issue I ever found when playing the game on the new console is that, for some reason when you do an atomic bomb, occasionally Anton's after image will not show up properly. It's a weird little quirk, but on the whole, most of the stuff that I encountered throughout the game seemed to be pretty much on par with how it was looking on the Nintendo Switch, just at a higher frame rate and better performance metrics overall. So, if you haven't picked up Antonblast and are looking out for that game and happen to get a Switch 2, I would actually recommend picking the game up because it runs a lot smoother on the hardware now. Or, if you have a Nintendo Switch and plan on getting a Switch 2, I recommend checking Antonblast out again when it comes out on there. Even if the developers aren't able to fully fix the game up to run better on the Switch 1, which I really hope they can stable out the frame rate in some of these lower dipping moments, you can at least play the Switch 2 version or anything of the game and get a better experience than instead of having to rebuy it like on Steam or something. Alright, that's it for now. Next time, I'm probably going to actually look at the game that people want me to look at, like stuff like Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour and Mario Kart World. Hopefully that won't be too much longer. So, until then, yeah guys, have a nice day.